Galakrond's Foe is the first part of the mega dungeon Dawn of the Infinite, and in Season 3 of Dragonflight this is going to be one of the dungeons that we're going to be doing in Mythic Plus. In this short guide, we're going to go over the most important trash and boss mechanics, so you're best prepared once this is live on the servers. The first trash is going to have some Chrono Weavers which cast Chrono Melt. This is a channel that does heavy amount of damage, and if you don't interrupt it, the target is simply going to drop dead. Tempo Slice is another channel by the Time Slicer. This one is not interruptible and it usually targets your tank. It not only damages them, but it also increases damage taken, so you need to knock back or stun those mobs to save your tank from perishing. And then we have the big Epoch Reapers, which will just jump to a player and start spinning violently. Make sure to move away from the circle as quickly as possible, as it does a lot of damage. Chronicar is the first boss. He's going to put yellow circle debuffs on all your party members, and in few seconds they drop sand puddles on the ground. You want to stack those close to the edges of the arena because they remain there until the end of the fight. His other main mechanic is going to mark two people with Eon Shatter, even bigger yellow circles that will remain static on the ground in few seconds. At that point you want to move out as quickly as possible because the boss is going to jump inside and do AoE damage. She also shatters fragments that you need to dodge and leaves a big pillar of light that you need to soak. It doesn't have to be the tank, but somebody needs to run back in and soak it, otherwise you take heavy AoE damage that will probably wipe you. The boss also has a tank buster called Chrono Shear. It does damage, knocks the tank back and puts a huge heal absorb shield on them, along with a debuff that increases their damage taken. The debuff is quite long and you can dispel it, but not before you heal through the heal absorb shield. All these mechanics keep repeating until you kill the boss, so manage your space correctly and keep soaking the pillars of light. The trash that follows is quite nasty and you have to clear all of it to summon the second boss. Temporal anomalies are going to cast Bloom, which puts a ticking debuff on your tank and it replicates it on another player. Usually you want to dispel that other player and let the tank handle it on its own. These mobs also have a frontal that you need to dodge. The Coalesce Time is going to put yet two another debuffs on people, big yellow circles that will explode in 5 seconds. They are dispellable, make sure everybody is out from them when they explode. And also there's small ghostly mobs around the area which are not active. However, if you blast them with the Chrono Burst, they activate, they become trash and you have to cleave them down with everything else. The Coalesce Times will also cast Infinite Bolt Volley. Make sure to interrupt that because that's even more AoE damage that's going to hit your party if you don't. The Time Stream Leeches are going to cast Enervate. Make sure to interrupt that. If the cast goes off, they start doing AoE damage in a small area. And there's also Coalesce Moment mobs which have single target interrupt Infinite Bolt. The second boss, Manifested Time Waste, divides the field in 4 quadrants, 2 dark ones and 2 brighter ones. You'll be taking ticking damage throughout the fight and it ticks faster in the light areas, so try to maximize your times in the dark ones. The boss is going to cast Fragments of Time, expelling orbs outside of him, and you need to dodge them as they move faster in the light areas and much slower in the dark ones. This strategy seems to be running counterclockwise behind the orbs, staying as much as you can in the dark areas, but as long as you dodge them and you don't get hit, it doesn't matter how you do it. He's also going to mark 2 players with Chrono Faded yellow arrows on top of their head. In 8 seconds they explode and they drop a ring which starts expanding. Anyone that gets in touch with the ring takes damage. Here you want to drop or dispel the ring in the light areas, because if you do that it moves very quickly and everybody that gets hit will only take 1 tick of damage. However, if you drop it in the dark areas, it's going to move very slowly and everybody's going to take multiple ticks of damage when it passes through them. Rinse and repeat and on to the next. After the second boss, there's a big dragon that you can skip. If you engage it though, be careful when he casts Timeless Curse. Those are a lot of brown swirlies on the ground that you need to dodge. And his other mechanic is a 5-second channel called Infinite Fury. It does heavy AoE damage, so be prepared to use defensives and healing cooldowns. The next area features Blight Chunk Slimes, which buff the melee damage of nearby mobs when they die, so be careful when you pull a lot of these. And then there's several Risen Dragons which have a Necrotic Outburst aura. It does heavy AoE pulsing damage every 2 seconds, so be very careful, especially if you pull 2 of those mobs at the same time, because they hurt a lot. They also cast Blight Spew, which are just green swirlies on the ground. Simply dodge this. Blight of Galakrond is the third boss and it has 3 phases. In all the phases he's going to cast Corrosive Infusion, which marks 1 player with corrosion. They have 12 seconds to get rid of the debuff or they'll get mind control and they'll attack you. You can pass the debuff to a teammate by simply walking on top of them, and eventually you want to pass it to your tank, so when the boss casts the frontal Blight Reclamation, the tank will get hit and the debuff is going to be gone. In all phases, the boss leaves green puddles behind him, so stay out of those and be careful and dodge the big green swirlies when he casts corrosive expulsion. At 80%, phase 2 starts and he transforms into a dragon, getting one new ability called Necrotic Winds. It does AoE damage to your party, so be ready to use defensives and healing cooldowns, it pushes you back and there's tornadoes that you need to dodge. The rest of the mechanics will also keep happening until 50% when phase 3 starts. The boss splits into two, no more Necrotic Winds, but there's 3 new mechanics that come up. Necrofrost targets and roots a player in place taking heavy damage. You can DPS down the roots to free the player or just use skills like Blessing of Freedom instead. The other dragon is going to cast bolts at your teammates, you just have to heal through those because you cannot interrupt them, and he also has a frontal that you need to dodge, keeping in mind that the rest of the mechanics are still happening and you still have to deal with the corrosion debuff. The 2 dragons share health, but if you put them on top of each other you can cleave them down to kill them faster, and once you do, you can move on to the next part. The trash before the last boss is a mixture of most of the creation we've seen so far. The only new addition are elementals that are going to cast Stone Bolt. Make sure to interrupt that because it not only does damage but leaves a stacking dot on the players. After a few packs you'll be at the last boss, Galakrond. He has quite a few mechanics starting with Extinction Blast. A player gets marked with a huge circle and they need to run on top of Chromie, who is fighting alongside us. She provides Protective Dome that basically nullifies the damage from this ability, and everybody else needs to get out of the circle. The next ability is Stonecracker Barrage. There's 2 circles on the ground, big and small one, that you need to soak. The tank gets into the small one and everybody stacks into the big one behind him. The ability itself does heavy pulsing AoE damage, so be prepared to use defensives and healing cooldowns, and keep in mind that you also need to heal Chromie because if she dies you're probably going to wipe. The next ability is called Earth Surge. The boss gets huge shield that you need to DPS through, and while the shield is active he's shooting spikes outside of him. You need to dodge them as well as the sand puddles that are left behind, and each subsequent spike does more and more damage compared to the previous ones, so you need to DPS the shield as quickly as possible to minimize the damage that your party is going to be taking. The boss also has a huge frontal cone that you need to dodge. While this is happening, 2 players are marked with circles, and once the cone is gone, 2 ads spawn that you need to cleave down with the boss. Make sure to interrupt their Stone Bolt volley because it not only does damage but also leaves a stacking debuff on your teammates. Keep an eye on your tank because each melee attack increases the damage he takes from subsequent attacks. This debuff is quite short and it's easily reset, considering that most of the boss's abilities are long casts, but nevertheless, if the stacks get high, keep an eye on your tank. All of that keeps repeating itself until the boss gets down to 90%. At this point he starts casting 30-second long Cataclysmic Obliteration. You have to DPS him down to 85% before the cast is over, otherwise you lose, but if you succeed, the fight is over. During the cast you're taking heavy AoE damage, but Chromie puts a big shield that you want to get inside because it gives you extra damage, extra haste, reduced cooldowns, and so on. That will be all for the Galakrond's fall. Let me know what you think about this video in the comments below, and if you want to find more dungeon guides for the rest of the dungeons in Season 3 of Dragonflight, check out my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care, and wherever you are, be there.